So, you really hit on a point that one of the points we're talking about today is other vendors that are going to be providing patches for Magento
Mhm.
and how Webscale is doing that. So give us the high level of what you're going to be doing to help support merchants on M1.
Yeah, so we've committed to our M1 end of life program. We're going to be providing patches to the Magento 1 code base. We're also a hosting provider for OpenMage too. So, in this, staying on Magento 1, there are other options. I mean, certainly subscribing to patches from us, from Mage 1, from, depending on the version of Magento that you're employing, we'll provide support. There's also some other competitors out there that are providing M1 end-of-life support. And really that means that they are acting as the vendor for patches for Magento. So you'll be able to gain access to those within a well-defined time frame of vulnerability discovery to delivery of that patch, so that you can maintain your PCI compliance with vendor supply patches. That's one of the big pieces covered there. Obviously ours, one of the things we do is kind of really, if you think about it, it's more of a security checkup in a sense, where we're going to make sure that a certain number of these security boxes, known flaws, things we've encountered supporting Magento for all the years that we have, to make sure that we're closing those gaps and that your site is in the best posture that it can have from a security standpoint. And that's not new. It's not saying that, yeah, there's something fancy in there that's magically going to help you with M1 end of life. It's really the things we've been saying for a long time. You should be doing these things for security and just ensuring that they're in place and enforced on your site, and that everything is as it should be for your Magento 1 deployment. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so we weren't going to we're going to try to do questions at the end, but there are some relevant questions to this topic right now. I know Steve had a question about when should you be patching your system, and he mentioned Mage report. Is it adequate to stay up to date with security patches by applying red critical patches that are found in Mage report? I would.
Oh, go ahead, Brent. I know you have an opinion here too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my answer is yes. Always apply any patches that you need, and look at open. Yeah, as soon as they're available.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Mage report's one thing, but that's what the internet can see. You have access to your system. Look at, run the reports directly from your code base. You can see there are tools out there to help you understand what patches have already been applied or have not been applied from inside your code base. So don't just trust what the internet knows. You actually have elevated access because you ostensibly have access to your own Magento deployment. So go look at it and understand what's been applied. What patches have already been applied to your system, and you should be applying them all. You should be current with all patches from Magento. It's a must.
Yeah, and this is certainly where Magento can help out a merchant if they don't quite understand how they could be digging into their code to make sure their patches are applied. We can certainly help with that. I know there's a question here, and it is a little bit tricky, and I did do a little research in Adobe on enterprise, M1 enterprise patches. Adobe is saying that to develop a patch on their version of enterprise, that you have to be on site. And I would really give pushback since you are paying for that license. If there's a vulnerability, I don't believe that's the case, that Adobe's going to hold. I mean, I guess if it's on site, is it on site where your server is or where your business is located? I would say that if you have a patch that needs to be applied, that patch should be applied to that. And the question was specific about Mage 1, and now they're not going to support enterprise patches, but they will develop patches for community, and I guess the reality of it is that community and enterprise are 90% the same, and most likely your community patch will apply to your enterprise version, and the only differences would be the ones that have that namespace enterprise. And if there is a vulnerability in that, then that extra little bit of patching can be can be done for that specific version. But if you as a merchant get pushback from Adobe because they're not letting you maintain your own code, then yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Another quick question, Jay. Webscale is charging for these patches?
It's a subscription. So you would subscribe to our M1 end of life package, and then you would get access with some SLAs around when those patches are going to be maintained or when they'll be provided to you. There are some requirements, so you have to be current on latest versions of Magento. Yeah.
Yeah, so all right, and a couple more questions. This is a hot topic, right? We should have just done this. So the process of patching should be the same. A question was, how will the process of patching my storefront different from the process we followed from those issued by Magento? And how much time by developer will we need to install these patches? And I'm just going to say it should be the same as the way Magento release patches. There is a patch file that you can apply. Mm-hmm. And the time to apply that patch would be no different than any other patch. I would say the time to test that patch is always the one that is different. And the more complex your system is, the more testing you should be doing. So again, the actual applying of the patch takes minutes, but testing that patch can take hours.
And Brent, I mean, my opinion in that too, right? The issues that we see when a patch is, you can look at that and say, yeah, okay, so this patch has come out, I'm exposed, I now know of this vulnerability. It's important for you to apply that as quickly as possible, but you want to do that safely too. You want to not put your business at risk. If you're already subscribing to the patch, you're already exploring the application of that patch as soon as it's made available, that's the most important thing. It's the long-term maintenance of the code base that's serving your storefront. And by having that maintenance and then maintaining and actively maintaining your website, that's how you're going to stay protected. A lot of the attacks that we see, they're kind of phishing the bad guys. There are many published lists out there in the world of all Magento 1 sites, all Magento, every e-commerce platform, who's running what. And so because the internet can see what you're running, there's no attacks to install card skimmers don't tend to target, specific sites, sometimes on the very big ones for sure, but the little guys, it's more of a phishing exercise. They cast a wide net and they test the vulnerabilities across a large number of domains that they know that are running this version of Magento, and then what they're looking for is somebody that's not applied the patch, and those tend to be long-running kind of problems. They tend not to be just sort of the immediate, unless you've got a target. So really, most merchants, yeah, you should just, the act of staying up to date with the patches and staying into and keeping track of patches, and then making sure that your site's well tested for those and you're not going to break anything. And then if you're actively marching to that and you're installing as quickly as you can, but not putting your site in jeopardy, you're on the right path, doing the right thing.
Yeah, and this last question that I have before we go on and then have more questions later at the end, but the last question that's relevant to this topic is, are the patches PCI compliant? And I'll take a first stab at this question, sure, and then I'll let you comment on it, Jay, okay, or comment on it. So PCI compliant means that that somebody is assessing your website no matter what your code is, and Magento 2.0 is no longer in service. It's already end of life. So theoretically, your Magento 2.0 site is out of PCI compliance now. And if you custom coded a site, it would still have to be PCI compliant. So somebody has to supply the patch. And as long as you go through all the steps to be PCI compliant, then you are PCI compliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the comment there, just to put it in another way, maybe different words, is that a patch is or is not PCI compliant. It's kind of apples and oranges. That's the process of following that framework. It's about good stewardship of your own code base and maintenance of your own code base. So a patch by itself can't be PCI compliant. There are a service provider that you may include, right? We have what's called an AOC, or an attestation of compliance, that we provide to our merchants that demonstrates that we've gone through our tier 1 audit as a service provider, and that we've passed that in our coding practices, are successful, and everything that we're doing is correct from a PCI compliance standpoint. So it's kind of a firewall. With that AOC in place, everything on the other side of that firewall is good, right? So you can trust that compliance, because a PCI Council validated auditor said, yes, this is good. These guys are good. We've got compliance. So now you don't have to go analyze our code that we use to service your site, or our infrastructure, or how we service that. But then in that used to, in a way, that's kind of the responsibility you're taking on with the Magento 1 and going beyond end of life, is now you are responsible for the vulnerabilities that are in that code base. And you have to, have a vendor that's supplying you patches to maintain that. You have to be able to demonstrate to your auditor that you're supporting and maintaining that code base yourself. And so that can be, I'm going to get these patches, and here's how I'm going to apply them, and here's the process, the vendor that I'm going to go to get that. Or, it could be, as Brent mentioned, you could have a custom coded site where you have other things you have to go through there to prove your compliance. So.